I'm so glad that you're watching this video. My name's Kyle. I'm one of the pastors at Heritage Park, and we're going to talk to you about the SWORD method of Bible study. Specifically, we want to do this with our students, and one of the reasons behind why we want to do this is we've seen is kids are going off to college, and they are struggling with being able to read the Bible for themselves. One of the things that's happened is we've used book studies or like little like devotionals or these kinds of things that have given people questions, and even in our small groups we've given them questions that help them process everything, but they're not learning how to do it for themselves. And so one of the things that we're going to shift to do in our small groups and in all of our student small groups, we're going to begin to do this SWORD Bible study method. It's super easy to do, and we're going to do it as a group, and I'm going to show you guys how to do this as a group. But then one of the cool things is that you can totally do this by yourself. And so the goal is when students graduate, go off to college, they can do this SWORD method by themselves because it's duplicable and it's super easy to do. So, for instance, what you're going to do is you're going to start with this kind of diagram. It's already written out because my handwriting is terrible. We have the sword, right? And this will help you kind of give you a framework of some questions to ask when you do this. So what you do is you start off with a passage. For instance, let's say you're going through Matthew chapter 5, Sermon on the Mount, and you what you do is you write down the passage that you are studying. And so this would be Matthew chapter 5. So just write it down somewhere. And so let's say you're studying just a few verses, so 43 through 48. However you need to do that, just write down the passage here. And then you're going to look at the sword, and the sword, kind of the front point points up. So the first question is, what does this say about God? And so you read through this. The passage is about loving your enemies. You're probably familiar with it. You've heard you shall love your neighbors and hate your enemy, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, etc. So what does this say about God? And so as a group, you'll discuss, hey, what does this say about God? Hey, well, maybe it says, God is loving and etc. So you write down all the things under this, what does it say about God? Great, you do that, you spend some time discussing these things, kind of clarifying some things for students, for the people in your group. And then you get down to the handle, what does this say about man? Okay, well, maybe we love more naturally the people that look like us and or smell like us and these kinds of things. And maybe we should think about loving others differently, and those kinds of things. And so you write down those things. What does it say about man? You write that. Super easy. And then you get to this side thing, and it's a small acronym, SPEC, S-P-E-C. Is there a sin to avoid? Is there a promise to claim? Is there an example to follow? And is there a command to obey? And so you begin to look through the passage. Hey, is there a sin to avoid? And so you would, obviously, in a passage like this, it would be, maybe pride, anger, those kinds of things, right? Unforgiveness. You begin to write through, hey, what are some of the sins that it's talking about avoiding here in this passage? And then, hey, is there a promise to claim here? And you can probably, as you look at the passage, you chew on the passage a little bit, you begin to see, okay, hey, if I begin to do this, I'll begin to see people the way God sees. And so here's, there's a promise there. You see another promise. You begin to write some of these things that you can claim, like, hey, if I begin to do this, I'll begin to see these promises of God. I'll begin to look at people this way, specifically from this passage. Is there an example to follow? There's tons of examples in here. So you just write those over here by however it's laid out, right? You just write those things down as a group. You're discussing them. They throw an idea, you discuss it. And then is there a command to obey? And you write that down. All the different commands that it says to obey, and you fill it out. So this could take you 15 minutes, it could take you 30 minutes. Just the goal is to process it all together, right? So you see, what does this say about God? What does this say about man? Is there a sin to avoid, a promise to claim, example to follow, and a command to obey? And one of the things that you can do, just to help everyone out, is you have a bunch of different translations that people carry around, so ESV, NIV, NLT, whatever translation they have a couple different people read the passage in different translations. So you have a couple different translations that are read aloud, and then you kind of process all of this together. And then the very, very last thing that you do is that you do a summary. In 15 words or less, you do the summary. And this is going to be one of the most critical aspects of this, because what you're going to do in a very concise way is you're going to say all of the things that this passage is saying. Here's how I would wrap this up into one sentence. You have to be really concise. It's going to be difficult. You might start off with 30 words and kind of parse it down a little bit. But what you want to do is summarize it in 15 words or less. And what we believe that is going to happen is what we're going to do through this is we're going to point people towards reading the scriptures, learning to read them for themselves, learning to interpret it in a community, but then also learning to be able to interpret it for themselves. I believe this is going to be really super helpful for all of our students as they kind of launch off into adulthood so they can continue following Jesus. So, hope this is helpful. Enjoy.